It's another episode of Capes and Tights, a comic book and pop culture podcast. I'm your host, Justin Soderberg. Adam's taking another week off. That's fine. We're figuring this whole scheduled out thing with him being in Illinois. And sometimes he lets me run solo when I have a guest like I do today, this week on Capes and Tights. Before we get started, check us out at capesandtights.com, at Capes and Tights Podcast on Facebook and Instagram, at Capes Tights Pod on Twitter, as well as Apple, Spotify, and all your major podcasting platforms. And like I said just a moment ago, the number one resource for this website or podcast is our website, capesandtights.com. So check that out. But we've got Ben Bishop, Maine's own Ben Bishop, on the podcast today. It's technically the third time he's been on the podcast. The first time he's been on since we've renamed ourselves Capes and Tights in 2021. But he's been on before, and we'll welcome him back graciously. Just so you know, Ben is the author, writer, creator, art storyteller, and extraordinaire of Aggregate, the world's first split decision comic book. It's a choose your own adventure graphic novel that he kickstarted back a couple of years ago. He's working currently on Aggregate 2. He also partnered up with Kevin Easton, co-creator of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, to do Drawing Blood. He's also working on book 2 for Drawing Blood right now as well. But he is currently known the most around the world for his series art in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, The Last Ronin, which wrapped up its 5th and final issue of its miniseries in April of 2022, where him and the co-creator of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Kevin Eastman, as well as Peter Laird, Tom Waltz, the Escorza brothers, and more, helped put together this astounding 5-part series. He also has many different variant covers on this series, as well as many variant covers around the world, as he is known as Ben Bishop, the comic book artist. So check out this episode of Capes and Tights with myself, Justin Soderberg, and Maine's own comic book creator, Ben Bishop. Enjoy, everybody. How's it going, Ben? So you've been doing cons again. How's it been doing cons?
Exhausting. I don't remember what the first one was, but I think it was like New York and Granite back to back.
Mm-hmm.
And I keep hearing people say, "Oh, I've lost my con feet," or blah blah blah. And basically, I agree. It means you have lost your endurance for it. It's crazy. It's a lot of smiling, socializing, and at the same time still being a little weirded out by the virus. So you see people coming up, and part of you is like, "Nah, don't come over here," and then you're like, "No, wait, that's why I'm here." So you're at this contradiction where you're like, "I don't know, okay, yeah, what do you want?" And so then you forget once you're there, but by the second day you forget, and no one's wearing masks, and you're like, "We're all gonna die," but it's a good time. Yeah, it's been a good time.
It's fun to see the pictures and stuff like that from you doing your different setups and so on. But you do not quite a few, but you do your fair share. I've met with some people at the Bangor Comic and Toy Con who do do 50 cons a year. And it's with these massive setups of these cages that they put their toys and stuff on. And I'm like, can you imagine every weekend packing your shit up, putting it in a car or getting on a plane and driving it to the next spot? That's insane.
It's your only job. I mean, me and Joe and Dylan, when we used to share a space, we were doing them every single weekend. And if not, it was 3 out of the 4 weekends every month. And I think there's 4 weekends a month. But anyway, we were doing a lot. And then pandemic happened, obviously. And then I kind of eased in. But it's tough because there's certain shows that if you don't do them, you're dead to that show. And you just don't have a spot anymore. So New York, Emerald City, Chicago, I feel like I have to do it, even if I don't necessarily feel comfortable doing it, or I'm not ready, or I'm too busy. Heroes Con, a lot of these big shows, I don't want to lose my spot. So it's kind of tricky, but it is the way it is, because there's other guys who are willing to get out there who would gladly take the spot. So I get it, but having to make decisions about which ones, and now being invited to some really good ones, but they happen to be at a bad time, and I have to say no. And so it's a good problem to have, but I wish it could be just I only do cons, or I only draw comics, but it's so much of all these things that you get out of a routine for one thing and have to remember how you used to do the other thing. And
yeah.
It's a lot.
Well, that's what I say. Like some of the smaller cons, like I would include Bangor in that conversation about how like some of these actors who are like the celebrity guests aren't doing anything anymore. Like this is what they do. Like they get up on a weekend, they get on a plane, they fly, they do their con, they go home, spend the week at home, go to a con. Like artists are actually physically like working on pages, and even the celebrity guests that are currently in movies, they're there because they're not filming. Like they're not actually actively working. So
yeah, we have something. Usually most comic artists, if they're smart, they do it like they're like, I finished my book, now I'm gonna do shows. And I'm gonna do. But I feel like every comic artist always has a bunch of things on the table in progress, no matter what. And so you kind of put it on hold, and the fan expectation is like, why aren't you at that show, or do this, or hey, can you do a commission for me and do this? And it's like, do you still want me to get that stuff done, or do you want me to do that? Like, it's weird because you're playing all these different roles, like taking time off from that. But hey, why is that thing late? It's like, well, because I was just in Chicago for 5 days because I wanted to meet new people, and you asked me to go, and I was like, you know what I mean? And so it's tough. You got to get back to it. But that was one of the good things about working, not leaving the state or the town even throughout a year and a half or so, is I got so much work done. Like I was like very lucky that I didn't have any like huge losses around me or people I knew even. And so once I got past the devastation and depression of it all, I was like, okay, well, this is like, I have all this time, like let's crank. And I got a lot done. And I think I got a lot better in a lot of ways. And the club blew up. And so the club was just churning. And so it was good for me in that regard. But now it's like all that stuff is still spinning and we're traveling. And you're like, no. Yeah, I think I was supposed to be at Bangor. And I just forgot. Like I was booked on another show, and I said yes to both, and I like was on a plane, and then I saw Joe going, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so sorry, guys. Like I'm glad.
Well, it's funny too, because I feel like they were communicating with me about it too, and I was just like, yeah, I don't know what's going on. Just, people have all these different things, and we never feel bad because like there's people who are celebrity guests that are like promoting to help bring people to the show, cancel in the last minute. So it happens. It's not like a new unusual thing. And when Will was literally like about to post your photo saying you were coming, and that's when he messaged, it was just a miscommunicate. And then like, it was like that day you posted you're going to a different convention. So he was like, well, that's okay. I'm not going to reach out. It's fine. We're going to move on. But then I know you have been committed. We have your photo. The photo's been posted on the Bangor Comic and Tri-Con for Weekend of the Weekend in October. So you have to go now.
You want to know a funny anecdote about that? Is I did not say yes to do that. He goes,
oh, really?
He goes, what are you doing? Or do you have another show that weekend? And I said, no. And then I saw my picture posted, and I was like, motherfuckers, but I'll go. I'll be there. But it was really funny.
See, next year's Maine Comic and Toy Con is going to be very easy for you because you can stay at home. Like
I'm pumped about that because I've been jonesing for somebody to bring a good show to Portland. Like, I think the show that you guys do is really, really good. But because it's in Bangor, you're getting everyone just coming down, of course. Like not getting a lot of people going up. But Portland would be, if you can do the same kind of show in somewhere like Portland, I think it's going to go real well.
There's some some pretty cool names and some pretty cool things they're doing. They're going to announce it. Like Will and Jay are going to announce it pretty much closer to October, so they're not some confusion, or maybe right after October. I talked to them on an episode that actually aired, was on the podcast episodes today on our channel, and they said something about like waiting, because it's kind of confusing. We have a con every 6 months now. It's going to be confusing on what guests are where and so on and so forth. When they announced April, there was people who messaged saying, wow, it's this weekend, what the heck? And people didn't realize it was next year's April 28th to the 30th. Like it was a year from now. So that's pretty cool.
That's part of what happened to me is I get confused when there's 2 shows a year. Just name it something very specifically different, and then it'll be fine, and make all the branding very different. And people like me just check back in and be like, you still remember your company?
But see,
today,
you say that again? Yeah.
Oh, well, today even another little funny anecdote about me not remembering anything. I just posted that Kanto cover homage that I did for the Last Ronin. It's similar to your shirt there, but it's more like the Escorza Brothers issue long cover. And I tagged him in it. Incredible colors by Luis. And he messaged me and goes, I drink a lot on the weekends, but I'm pretty sure I didn't color that. And I was like, oh my God, I colored it. And I tagged him just because like my brain is so misty right now. It's weird. I don't
Have you met Luis like physically in person?
No, so we're all going to meet at the CGC signing in a couple weeks, though. We're going to Florida. The brothers will be there. Tom, Kevin, me, and Luis.
Because I was listening to a podcast with Scotty Young on it, and he was saying the colorist that he goes through, and I don't remember the next guy's name, but it's the same thing. He's worked with him for like 15, 20 years, and he's not ever met the person in person.
I think that's Jean-Francois Beaulieu.
Yes.
Probably how you say that, but he colored the Spider Cat aggregate cover for me, the blue one, and he did a couple other covers for me. I think he might have done that Last Ronin behind you in the green. I think he did that one for me. That was like 2 years ago. I forget.
It's pretty funny. This one right here looks like it's in a CGC case, but it's not. It's just sitting in front of Amazing Spider-Man 361.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, same with
that. Yeah.
Yeah, same with this. This was a Spawn #1, but I just wanted to put them up because I wanted to get those on there to show my little Last Ronin bucket here too. We talked. Paul Eaton of Galactic Comics and Collectibles talked about variant covers on an episode that's coming up. We've kind of put it in the can. We talked about how many variant covers there were for this Last Ronin series and so on. And it was kind of funny. I was like, and it was a $9 book too. It wasn't even like, when Spawn does variant covers and McFarlane's books are $2.99, you have your variant covers that are $9 Facebook or face value, but then you also have obviously your store variants and things like that cost more. So it was kind of funny. I was like, it could make you go broke.
It would have had a lot more because they stopped the variant program by issue 2. So issue 1, I think, had like 75, and I think issue 5 they opened it back up, so they would like bookend it with a lot of variants. But I mean, issue 5 alone, because I did the 5 cover connecting, I had 6 covers. So that was 2,700 books right there. I was like, oh my God. So,
and you have to sign most of them.
I haven't done it yet. They're right over here. But I signed all of them. But I think it was 177 copies, but the remarks, I think, is like 550 copies or something.
You ever seen the episode of Seinfeld where Jerry has to sign those checks from the super terrific happy hour in Japan, where his like 30 seconds of his stand-up skit was like in the opening thing, and they'd send him like a check for every time it ran, so it'd be like 30 cents, 15 cents, but he had to endorse every single one of them. And so he was like walking around with like a crippled hand because he had to sign so much. That's what you're gonna be like after signing all these books. You're just gonna be like, I can't sign any more books.
I can sign them really fast, but it's the remarks. And with this set, each cover has a different character, so I obviously want to draw that character on that cover, that character on that cover. So I have them in stacks right now. So I figure I'll draw Mikey for like 3 hours, and then draw Leo for 3 hours, and then draw Don. At least I don't have to think about, who should I do? I should mix it up. They all got their own.
You do all their own, yeah. But I mean, now that you're wrapped with this, so the final issue, I say episode because a mini series, I always think of episode, but final issue came out in April, and now that it's wrapped, I'm sure you have plenty of free time now because of it, right? I mean, like, you don't have other projects that you're going to start working on, right? I'm not going to ask about them, but
you see that back there? It's kind of washed out. That's Drawing Blood, book 2. So that's volume 2. It's a 4-issue volume. We probably talked about it the last 3 times I was on because it's been on pause because of Ronin, and even before that, Aggregate book 2, my creator-owned book, which is world's first split decision comic for those of you who haven't seen me on here before. And it's post-apocalyptic sci-fi with giant robots and spider cats. But because it's a split decision comic, you get to choose where you go as you read by making different decisions about what characters say and do, things like that. So really, it was like ultimate freedom for me to write. And I just said, I'll let everyone else decide what to do. Like, I'll just put down all my ideas I think are cool, and then you guys decide. But so I'm in the middle of book 2 as well. But Drawing Blood's really close. I've only got 3 more roughs to do. And then I'll put those on the wall. And then it's like a handful of finals, because some of those are finalized and done. And I think the idea and the goal is to always like find a routine. So like every day I come in, this is all I do. When I was on Ronin, it was like top priority. And I just knew, like, they were like, well, when will you be done? And I said, well, if I have 4 pages, I need 8 days. I can do a rough in a day and finally. And every day it was just like perfect. It was like exactly what I needed. So if I can do that on these 2 books, I'll just cruise. So right now it's kind of like tying up a lot of stuff that was on hold because of Ronin as well. Like whether it be, beer can stuff or other freelance work. And so it's been a couple months of just like finishing stuff, which is nice. And then it's back to the big two, drawing blood and aggregate.
Did you have it? Was it planned to be a year and a half of making Ronin, or was this? Because I know it was delayed, but I didn't know if there was still it was going to take every 2 or 3 months, or what was the original? Was it originally going to be monthly, or is it going to be?
Oh, the reason, like a big reason, I won't say the reason, but the big reason that every single issue was late and delayed.
Yeah.
I do air quotes, because what happened was there was an original team, of course, Andy Kuhn, a whole different chorus. The brothers weren't on board. I wasn't on board. And to my knowledge, they pretty much kept those release dates for that team, but we lost all that lead time for when we finally started.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of lead time. You're like, typically on a mini series or any comic, you'll want to have at least 2 or 3 issues done before you release issue 1. So you always have that buffer. And typically by the time they're on that last one, they've used all their buffer, and it's still, it's like a race. But that was every single issue for us. Like, it would come out, I would watch YouTube for like 3 days and watch every freaking review and like and read every review, and then it would be like, okay, time to get back to work, and we'd still try to hit that insane, unrealistic deadline, and inevitably it would get delayed. But I can't go out there online and be like, it's not coming out that day. I think by issue 5, I was just like laughing at the release dates that just made no sense. I was like, that's not real. Like, it's like when they're delaying your flight for 5 hours instead of just telling you it's canceled so you can get a hotel. Like, and so that's how I felt about it anyway. But so no, that wasn't the original plan. But it's also, to answer your question, I don't know what maybe Kevin and Tom had truly realistically hoped for, but I'm sure it wasn't as long as it took, and definitely not as long as the gap between 4 and 5. I think issue 5 was really hard, but I think Kevin wanted it to be good. Like, he wanted it to be great. He wanted it to be a good ending, and exactly what he had in his mind, because he believes, and we all believe, and we hope that this like lives on as like a big historic kind of book. Like, it's obviously a giant love letter to Dark Knight. And so if it were to live on in a similar way someday to Turtle fans as that does to Batman fans, like, that would be incredible. And so I think there was a little bit of pressure, but man, there was not a single hour of any day Kevin wasn't working on it. Like, it's crazy. It's his whole being for a while.
I was going to ask you though, it's like, so it's 5 issues. I was kind of happy, sad. As a fan of Turtles, as a fan of your work, as a fan of Kevin's work, as a fan of the book itself, it made it nice because every time a new issue came out, I was able to read the previous issues over again. So like, if a book came out, like right now they're re-releasing The Walking Dead and The Walking Dead Deluxe, which is like the color version of it, whatever, but it's every 2 weeks. And it's like, I don't have the time if I wanted to do the similar thing with that. It's like, and so with these, it was nice because it gave me the ability to like, okay, read 1 and then wait a few months and then read 1 again when 2 came out and read 2. And then when the next game came out, I would say 1 and 2 again. So I've read 1 5 or 6 times now. And I've obviously only read 5 one time now because it only came out a couple weeks ago. But it's funny how I was able to read them over and over and over again and enjoy them throughout the time. Yeah, which is cool. Which is a cool side effect of the fact that it took so long. Like, not in a bad way, but in, like I said, a way that it takes as long as it takes. That's the other part. Like, all of us out there like really want the new thing, but it takes as long as it takes. Like,
and you don't want it to be bad. So like, as much as like, what the hell? Like, if we were like, okay, like, you would be so upset, and we would be so upset, and it would be worthless. And so I've said it a billion times. I think Kevin said it first, and I stole it. But it's like, something can only be late once, or in our case, 5 times. But it could suck forever. Like,
yes.
So let's make it not suck. There's very little in that book. I don't personally, on my stuff, like, I haven't found anything I regret yet, or that I wish I had done that face one more time or something. Like, I'm sure one day I will, but I did everything in my power to have no regrets about like every panel. And that doesn't mean I was like redrawing stuff for 6 days. Like I said, it would be like 5 hours of rough, 5 hours of final, like clockwork. It was like really cool the way that I honed that in for myself process wise. But there were times where like Louise would color a page, and because it was now colored, I would notice like an eraser shaving. There was an eraser shaving on that Karai face. Like, it's a whole panel where she's just like looking down, and it's like her head's this big, and there was an eraser shaving on her chin, and I was like, Louise, like, I'm really sorry, but can you get back into that file, erase that little spot, or send it to me and I'll do it? But that would have been more complicated. Like little things like that I just wanted to get right.
I mean, that's like, because I did look at a couple different things online too, other people's reviews or analysis of the series, the issues by themselves, to see if they matched up with what I thought and stuff like that. But too, and I think a lot of the connections to the Dark Knight and to Old Man Logan, even in that sense, and a Marvel side of it, like I love the Old Man Logan story. It has that kind of like similarity to its own story. It's its own world, its own thing, but it has that, like, to me, Old Man Logan to Marvel fans is a very memorable and iconic spot in Marvel
live
history.
On.
Yes,
especially if they made the movie, like for sure. And that's the thing, is I think Old Man Logan was a love letter to Dark Knight. That's why he's on the horse, and it's a love letter to Unforgiven and all these different things. And Kevin's not afraid to show his inspirations on his sleeve. Like he made Karai look exactly like Elektra, like because we were doing like an Elektra Lives homage. Like those pages with Raph that I did with the 2 panels on each page, that's straight out of Frank Miller. And the Buckethead guys are straight out of the same exact issue. The ones you see in issue 4, the bucket basket head kind of guys. And so like he's not afraid of doing it because he's like, this is what I love. And so like when I'm drawing those pages, I'm like throwing in Kevin and Pete Easter eggs because I'm like, this is what I love. And I'm like throwing in Easter eggs referencing turtles for Kevin and Pete in a Kevin and Pete book where they're paying homage and love to Frank Miller. And it's just like so many levels, Jared. It's crazy.
But it's amazing how your speaking of your artwork, how different your artwork is to the Scorza brothers, like how different the pages are, not in a bad way. Like I love their artwork, I love your artwork, but like it's Luis's colors make a big difference on that too, because the colors, obviously you could tell that they were different. And then Kevin's panels as well, like you can just tell everybody's artists are different, which made a big difference to me, because there are artists that have very similar feels and you can see them going back and forth, and maybe you wouldn't see that difference. But with you and the everything was just so perfectly laid out to the point where you're like, you knew you were going to a flashback when you got to your artwork, because you're like, okay, this artwork has changed, it's different colors, it's different.
So we stole that, or Kevin stole that from Drawing Blood. So in Drawing Blood, I do the layouts for every single page, same way Kevin does the layouts for all Last Ronin. He does my layouts, his own, Escorza's, because what that does is it gives the storytelling, the pacing, and the paneling the same kind of rhythm and vibe, instead of it just switching to a new artist who does things completely. And so then having the art styles be intentionally different. Like if mine was too close to the Escorza's, it wouldn't have worked. Like it would have been, you wouldn't have known when you're in a flashback. And so in Drawing Blood, we do the same thing. I do the real-time stuff. Kevin does flashbacks actually in the duo shade, the same paper he uses in Last Ronin, that classic turtle paper, which he's using the real thing. He's got the real chemicals, the real paper. They don't make it anymore. He's got like 50 sheets. He gave me 25 sheets the first time I met him, and he's like, this is gold. I was like, oh my God. So I've used it a few times. I used it on my Turtles 100 cover and the aggregate issue 0. But so it's the same thing where like this, and Troy Little does the cats in Drawing Blood, so that it's like the hallucinations and stuff. But I love that, and that was all a product of David, me, and Kevin. Just they obviously like probably had this idea before I even joined up, or maybe because I joined up, they were like, how can we do this? But it's also they came up with it, and we decided to do it because it's kind of a look at comics in general. Because in comics, they'll switch artists halfway through the issue, and you're like, what the hell? And like, and it's only because of like that guy was too slow or something. So we wanted to do it very, very intentionally, where you're doing it for a reason, but take advantage of passing the torch to get things done. It's pretty cool. I love talking about it.
It was really cool. And I obviously you knew what was going on, roughly what was going on from issue 1 to 5 from the beginning, right? I'm guessing they pitched the entire thing to you when you talked to Kevin.
Little bit. I got the document from Pete. I got Pete's famous document. And so I read what it was originally intended to be and blew my mind. And then obviously we, every issue, like Kevin and Tom would kind of powwow after the last one, and probably it's my assumption they took what they already had figured out, bullet points, outlines, and expanded on them. But I think they also like changed some stuff. I think that Kevin wasn't originally going to do as many pages as he did. People really liked what he did in issue 2 with his dual shade pages. Yeah. And then he was thinking about, well, where can I do that again that would help the story? And so that was one of the cool silver linings too about the book taking so long to come out in between, because not that we would bend to any fan expectation, but just seeing how thrilled people were to see Kevin's art, I think gave him the confidence to say, I guess that's a good idea, you know? And yeah, I'm glad it happened. I wish there was more of it. I wish there was some in issue 1 and 5. But
you had, was it issue 4 that you had the most pages in out of all of them, or was it?
I think it must have been.
I think it was 4.
2 or 3. It was either Raph or Leo.
Okay.
4 was Donnie, and that was the least. Donnie was kind of
okay. 4, so 2 or 3.
Well, not the least.
Yeah,
the least was issue.
Yeah, obviously the least. Yeah, and then in issue 5 you didn't have as many either, but that's because you had to wrap the story up too. Like you had to. It's a flat. You're doing the flashbacks, but we're talking the comic book's based in the time it's based in, so you have to kind of wrap it up at the end with the current time it's in.
Yeah, so I mean, we're talking full spoilers, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Warning to everyone, but so issue 1 is kind of the setup, mostly Ronin, future stuff. I do all the flashbacks, so that's why I was heavy in the middle, 2, 3, and 4, because it was Raph, Leo, Don, and so then come issue 5. Even throughout 4, Kevin wasn't sure if I would have any in 5. He had some ideas about everything, but I think it was more like 1 page. And every time I talked to him, I think I would just act like it was more. And then eventually he's like, and you've read it. And we're talking spoilers anyway. But he was like, you're going to love these fucking pages, man.
Yes.
And I fucking did. It was like Turtles Prime. Like, it's like City, all 4 brothers, Casey, Splinter, like at their, like, I couldn't have asked for cooler pages. And I got to draw like classic Casey in the teal and the sweatpants and the long hair. It was fucking awesome.
Not Casey from Out of the Shadows, the animated or the CGI movie with what's his name from Green Arrow, whatever. Did you see that movie? The Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle team, the 2000, the most recent.
Yeah,
one.
You're talking about the one with Megan Fox. Yeah, that.
Yes.
Yeah, he didn't even bother. He didn't bother changing his haircut or outfit. He's just Arrow.
Yeah.
And Megan Fox does the same thing in every movie. They put on a different leather coat. This one's yellow. This one's black.
Well, I watched it for the first time the other day, so I'm like, I haven't seen this movie, and I was like, that's the Casey Jones they picked out of this. Like, out of all the people they could have had done it, like do it, that's who you decided to do it. And then I also was listening to it, and at the very end of the movie, the turtles are on top of like the Empire or the Statue of Liberty, and they're like fading out. And I'm like, this was basically a Transformers movie with Ninja Turtles in it. Like instead of a Transformers, it was the Ninja Turtles. It was just cookie cuttered from the last movie, or from the Transformers movie. It was crazy.
The first one. Yeah. They like go up to the Alps, like they're in like snowy mountain. It's like, why aren't the turtles just in fucking New York? Like,
it was so bad. It was so bad. Oh, that's why this is like. Speaking of that, and that's why this. I mean, it plays like a mini series. So if anybody, first of all, if anybody, a little self promotion there for you or promotion for you is, do you still have your classes still up on lynda.com? Do you know?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they called Lynda anymore because they got bought out by LinkedIn, but if you search Ben Bishop comic classes, you'll find it.
Because it's in that you tell, because my wife and I have taken them, and in that you tell about the idea about, writing or laying out the comic book like a movie where you have it set up that way. And this book is done that in a way that this could easily be a movie or a TV show. Like I feel like just the way it's like capped out at the end, the beginning and the ending, it could be like a 2.5 hour, 3 hour movie, or a 5 episode, like hour-long episode, like exactly how it's laid out in the comic. Like each comic could be an issue or an episode. Each issue could be an episode. And it's great because, I mean, I'm a huge fan of comic books, but I'm also a huge fan of the medium of television and movies. So to me, it felt like this crossed over so well in that aspect of it. I felt like I was watching a new issue or new episode every time I read an issue.
I think that speaks to the writing, like the way they were writing it. And David Avalone writes Drawing Blood very similarly because he comes from writing film, and I'm just reading it or drawing it or reading it once it's done, and I'm like, oh my god, like this would work perfect. Like Last Ronin being so episodic, and like imagine if that was like a big feature film with the Henson suits. Judith Hogue is back. Ernie Reyes Jr.'s in it. Casey Jones is back. What's his name? Elias Koteas.
Yeah.
So good. Kevin even said like,
yeah.
As soon as I saw Elias when they cast him in the first movie, Kevin was like, this is Casey Jones. This is my drive.
In
like,
my mind, I see them basing the comic book after him.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So they all need to come back because we still have them, God bless. Like, and like make this freaking end cap, because we're at the perfect age where like it's the same like people who wanted that last Ghostbusters and they wanted like do a serious sequel to at least Secret of the Ooze. Like, you can leave the third one in there, just make jokes about it or something. Like just do it. Like wrap it perfectly. Somebody was saying online, because I've been promoting this like with a big tweet trying to get the ball rolling. But somebody mentioned online recently, like they were thinking they would pitch like a whole threequel, like a trilogy, where they start again, like, and it would be kind of more like the IDW tours, but the whole last movie would be Last Ronin. And I didn't think that was a terrible idea. If it had like big time jumps the same way, like, I don't know. I was hoping that this Batman movie, I don't know if you watched Joker.
I did, yes.
But I was hoping that this Batman movie would be that Batman that we saw as a kid in Joker, but like 10 years later. And then 10 years later, they do Robin. And like, so if they were to do a turtle movie like that, where it's like the first one, they're freaking teenagers, pizza loving, like second one, like it's the Empire Strikes Back, where stuff starts to go kind of bad and the truce is broken or whatever. And that third one is Last Ronin. Like, that'd be pretty cool.
I think it'd be awesome. And there's something we're needed for this. Like, there's a new Netflix movie coming out, which is going to be a pretty animated movie, which is going to be pretty cool. I'm excited for that because the voice actors they have are pretty cool too. I'm excited to hear them portray the four turtles. But we needed this more dark, gritty, like the similar to the original movie, maybe a step above that too, maybe a step like darker than that. And I feel like The Last Ronin is now there's material there, because it could have been easily. I mean, back in the day when those movies are made, it's possible for Kevin to have just sold this idea to a studio and it never actually even made it into the pages of a book, that it just became a movie in the first place. But now that we have it in front of me, I can read it and make it into something. And that comic book and it's only 5 issues, but like it sold hundreds and hundreds of thousands of copies of the book. So people have this at their house to base it off of. So let's get a movie made.
The first like point there is, you're right. Like if they were to try and do like, oh, give us a darker Turtles like 4 years ago or something, there would have been nothing to pull from. They would have remade the movie, but a little bit darker, and people would have been like, meh, okay. But now that this exists and it's been so adopted by the fans who love the original, like people our age, like 36 and around, you know, like I think they would just go nuts for it. And so you have the material to pull from, but then you do all the right things. You do the Henson suits, you do the original cast, and it can be darker because we want it to be darker, and it's okay. Like there's a Spider-Man movie for adults, there's a Spider-Man show for kids. Like you can have all these different things coexisting at the same time, and especially if it's primarily called The Last Ronin, kids aren't stumbling into that movie.
No, you could do it. You could do the Rogue One thing, the Last Ronin in the very small line, a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie or something like that. Like you could even, Rogue One, it says a Star Wars story where
a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles tale.
Yes.
That way they don't even need to commit to any continuity. And like, you killed my childhood. We're literally going to kill people. That's what's funny. Michael Bay will be like, are you fucking kidding me?
Yes, exactly.
He'll be like, you killed my childhood. He's like, they literally killed your fucking childhood. Love it.
But that's the benefit we have in this world. I feel like other companies and other studios have taken this and done it in like Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, Marvel. They've all killed off people in these. We're okay with that now. Like it doesn't have to be that the person started the whole series or started the whole thing needs to continue on. Tony Stark is dead, and like
we want good stories. We don't want these infallible, invincible characters. Like,
and we're living in the real world, like as in like real world people, like not real world because it's all fake, obviously, but real world as in these are actors and actresses that are playing these people. They are going to be able to not play these characters anymore. So at some point we have the ability to just kill them off and change up and reboot and new different timelines and storylines and things like that. Like it's not like none of these Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movies have ever been in the same timeline. Like it's not like these movies you see now.
this could be like, and it would
Yes.
be a real good way for them to just say, yes, it is. Like Kevin pulled from it just as much as I did with the artwork. Like he was like, I want it to be the first time around shot, just like in the movie. And he's like, and then there's a fire, just like in the like, and so I was constantly making sure that those references fit. And the way I wound up, because before this book, I used to draw turtles kind of differently, like very more IDW style. It was that first page I drew in issue 1 of Last Ronin is one of the only notes Kevin's given me on my art. Like drawing blood, I'm so spoiled. I pass in pages and they're like, we love him. And sometimes David will say like, oh, don't forget to put this in there. And I'll go, oh yeah, sorry. But my only note really artistically from Kevin ever was Last Ronin issue 1, my one page, page 39. I drew Mikey's head and it was more IDW-y, kind of like Gumball. And he just said, wider cheeks, because the Mirage and the movie, they get so wide at the bottom. And I have it somewhere, but he put 2 Sharpie lines like around Mikey's face. I gotta frame it. And ever since then, I've been going wider. And now by like, I think Leo in issue 3, I was like, this looks like the Henson suit, but like he's been through shit. Like he's got wrinkles and he's like, and I was so happy with that. Like,
how we just take the Henson suits from the first movie and put them, like, don't make new ones. Like the ones that are really deteriorating. But like, it doesn't mean you can't have CGI either, though, right? I mean, it doesn't mean like you can't touch up the turtles with CGI and have the original, like a suit like that. Like, you could make Judith Hogue look younger too. If you wanted to put scenes that weren't in the original movie, you wanted to have some flashbacks, you could use that CGI technology they use on Luke Skywalker to make her look younger.
Marvel and Disney have shown like anything is possible, but like that was Michael Bay's excuse for doing full CGI enormous giant turtles. He said, well, how are they supposed to do backflips and kick and run fast? And it was like, you should only be able to go as fast as you can go with a thing on your back. Like in the old movie, like they took out like one frame. I think it was like usually 24 frames and they made it something else, whatever. But so it sped it up a little bit, but like, that's the same thing we'll do now with a little bit of CGI in the seams. Like they could leave same way Iron Man.
Yeah.
Like you see in the thing, he's got the chest, he's got the helmet, he's got the gauntlets, all this stuff. Like let the actor move freely. We need those emotive, real, practical faces. Like that shit. You can still watch that movie, and when they cry around that campfire, it's real. Like, and when he's in the tub and his skin is wet, you're like, what the fuck? Like how?
Exactly. It's insane. We don't, and we did before back in the fall, Adam and I did a review and discussion of the original movies and how much they just held up still, and how much that stuff is one of the things that people complain about Star Wars is the fact that like the remakes or the prequels didn't use enough practical effects. And so I feel like we have this nostalgic part of us who want to have, nostalgic.
That shit was way better, and CGI should be used as an enhancement too. Or like stuff you truly cannot do yet. Like not for stuff you can do right now, and you can probably do it a little bit better and with more artistry. Like CGI artists are incredibly talented. I know people who work at Tippett Studios, but Tippett Studios is all about using as much practical as they can and enhancing it. They did the arachnids in Starship Troopers.
Yeah.
And Tippett Studios made like an erector set, like creature. And all those movements, they did it in stop motion. All those movements went into the computer, and those arachnids are stop motion animated in that movie, even though they're fully CGI. Like there are ways to give us that same like magic with the turtles, even if it was just the head. Like honestly,
yes. Right. It could be just that. I mean, those guys did backflips and stuff like that in those suits as it is. So like, it's not impossible.
No, they just scared for whatever
Michael
reason,
Bay just wants to blow shit up. That's what Michael Bay wants to do.
He just wants that. He wants that money.
Yeah, exactly. Speaking of that, but like the Casey Jones part in the movies, I'd love to see daughter Casey Jones on the screen. Like Casey Jones is my favorite Teenage Ninja Turtles character, but now it's like, I don't know, he's battling his daughter now. His daughter might be my favorite Teenage Ninja Turtles character from this book.
Yeah, and I think like there's a lot that's being set up for her. Obviously, if you've read all 5 issues, and we got the to be continued. We kind of got a double ending of issue 5. We got a definitive the end, and then we got a to be continued
post credit scene.
Yeah, it's a damn post credit scene. It's built Right. One of the negative things I heard in a podcast was like, wow, they mentioned that spoiler alert,
Yes.
that she had like mutant powers a couple issues ago, and then they never touched on it until like at the very end of issue 5, and it's like, it's for another movie, like it's for another book, like the fact that they mentioned it, we're lucky. If they hadn't mentioned it, and then that other book happened, and they suddenly mentioned it, like that's such bad writing. Like sometimes people recognize like good writing is bad writing because they didn't get enough of it, or it didn't do what they thought it was going to do. And it's like, just sit back. Like there's plans. Like this isn't,
Well, that's one note I had on it by the end of when I read it. It was like, it felt like it could end. Like if Kevin and you guys and the team and IDW never, ever, ever wanted to make another book past issue 5, I would be okay. It ended in a way that you don't need to know. You don't need to go any further than this. But if it also ended in a way that if they came out with another series, I wouldn't be upset. Same thing with like I mentioned with the Old Man Logan. It was like they did that series and then it did really well. Let's continue on. And I wasn't mad about that. Like
there's so much world building. It would be stupid not to. Like the world in Old Man Logan is amazing. Like Hawkeye driving the spider buggy, and like what is it? Red Skull's collected all that stuff, and like the same thing with Last Ronin. Like there's a great deal of time spent by Tom and Kevin talking about the city itself, and like now that they've taken down Baxter and Hiroto, the city's actually kind of fucked up.
Yes,
and I think that's really cool. That reminds me of like in Batman Begins, when suddenly half the city got fear gassed, and you're like, okay, now it makes sense that there would be insane villains in the future films. Like we might get a Killer Croc because he's living in the sewers and he's on fear gas. Like I love stuff like that. So there's so much potential for that city and the supporting cast and whatever Casey's got going on there at the end, for better or worse. Some of the comments I've seen about, spoiler alert, those 4 new baby turtles is like, what kind of awful person would do that? Like play God, bring in new turtles. And I was like, wow, I never even thought about that. But that's good story. Like maybe April is just as crazy as Splinter. Like this Splinter, I guess in the original Mirage, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not as familiar with them as I am the cartoons and the toys, but Splinter made the turtles to fight his war, right? Or at least he found them and used them for his war. Like and issue 4 felt a lot like that to me. Like I read it and I was kind of like, Kevin, like Splinter's just off his rocker. Like he doesn't care. He knows him and Donnie are going to die. And I think that that's a callback to how they originally were writing the family.
Yeah.
And I think April mentions that to Casey in issue 5. She says, look, this has been their war well before I knew him. Like she knows Mikey's out there probably going to die. And she's like, this isn't our war. But because Casey's mutated, she's like, guess what? It is. And it's such cool writing. Like it's really good writing.
It baffles me. And every time we talk about it, because it comes up like every Wednesday when I pick up comic books at the shop at Galactic Comics, we always talk, Paul has one of your remarked books on his wall in a frame, and something comes up and I'm like, oh, I can't wait for the next issue or whatever. And the people who haven't read it, I'm like, you got to read this thing. I mean, I am a Turtles fan. And honestly, we are for anybody out there who's listening to this episode, right now, we're in the best time, I think, since issue 1 of the Mirage days of Turtles, because the current ongoing series is unbelievable. I love that series. And then the Last Ronin, like that's like it's like we're in the epitome, I think, of comic books of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. The meaty other side of it, we need some work. We need to figure out another full-length feature film. And I can't judge the animated show on Netflix until it actually comes out, or the movie, I should say. But right now in the books, it's the best we've been in a while.
I think it's only going to get better. I don't think the Seth Rogen movie is going to suck. I think it's going to be funny. I think it's going to be fun. I think it's going to be very different from Last Ronin, so I don't think it takes that off the table at all. I think the Netflix movie you keep talking about, that's Rise, right?
Yeah.
So that one definitely got its own style, its own fan base. And so they're showing these wildly different things existing at the same time that they would be stupid not to do something with Last Ronin. Like I see a tweet about it every 4 hours, like either a movie or an animated show or an animated movie. Imagine if they just did a movie and it was broken into chapters, and every chapter they did that black screen that just said First to Fall, Chapter 2 or something. Like I'm here for it. That'd be so cool. I don't know. They could make Last Ronin. They should just do one because I don't want them to net. I don't want it to take too long, but they could make it into 3 movies.
Well, that's the other thing about it is you always see these like a series of books or comics getting optioned and all this stuff, and it's like 7-8 years later before they actually even make anything. So in all likelihood, if we're hoping for a Last Ronin thing, unless issue 1 is something that Kevin knows that we all don't know, and there's talks about it, and there's just nothing been leaked yet, that nothing's out there yet. So we're still waiting because it probably will be 6, 7, 8 years before we get anything out of this, but we can all hope and pray and wish that we get something.
Hopefully not that long. I mean, when did they announce the Rogan one? At least 1.5 years.
Yeah.
So
it is easier that it's an established property too. It's not like we're talking. I was just thinking about one book I put away the other day, the Recount over there at Scout. They're making that into a movie or a TV show, and it's like a good option, but it was like 1 year ago, and it's probably going to be 2 or 3 years. That's an established property. This is an established property at least.
Yeah, and we're in. Not weird, but Turtles is in great hand, I think. Like, what if this amazing story that everyone likes came out, but we were on some like small time publisher and the rights were owned by like nobody who could do anything with them, but like Nickelodeon and Paramount have like huge assets, like Viacom owns like. So if they wanted to make a movie and they wanted to make it fast and they wanted to do it big money, like Jim Henson, I'm guessing. Would be big money, but like wasn't the original Jim Henson was like, I'm gonna let Brian do this because it's a little too violent for me.
Yeah.
Which is like all the more amazing that now Brian is in charge, Brian Henson. And like he could end it. Like he could finish his freaking what he started. And I would love that.
I think was it you that tweeted out that thing or like retweeted or posted a picture of it, like the person who tweeted out saying that it would be great if they did it in the style of Ghostbusters Afterlife, where it was like it was in the same universe. It just was many I guess the Last Room was created to actually call back to the first 3 movies.
Yeah, somebody else said that, but that's exactly what I think. I think it should be a sequel. It should be connected, and it'll be all that much more tragic. Like because we have that connection to those characters going in like. Oh, it's a new continuity. It's not really connected to anything. Kind of like Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll still have emotional value the same way the comic does. But if people know and if people our age who were racing to the drive-in in the back seat of their parents' car, like when it was coming out, like we got pulled over on the way to Secret of the Ooze. And the cop was like, why were you guys speeding? And my dad like pointed to me and my brother who were like vibrating. And he was like, we're late to go see Turtles 2. And the cop was like, go. Like it will appeal to us. And that is so many people. And it'll appeal to the younger crowd who like shouldn't be at that movie, but is. And it will appeal to the older crowd who like, my kids love Turtles. And like, it would just be so cool.
It's another thing. It would be like what people consider a soft reboot or something along those lines. But because of the way they would make it, if they made it in a way that had the original Henson style puppet style Turtles, that it would throw a whole wrench in the idea that this is something new, and people would be like, all of us at 36 years old would go, oh my God, I need to go see this. And we have the money. We're the ones with the money. We're the 20-year-olds aren't the ones with the money. So you can't. The young kid, the 14-year-olds aren't the ones that are going to be going to see the theaters. We're the ones that afford to go to the theaters.
I think it's a really good sign that so many people are saying that they want that. And if more people want it, keep saying it. And also there's like toy lines now, and there's statues from Sideshow for like $2,000. And so like they'd be stupid to not notice. I'm really hoping, all of this is about comics, of course, comics first. But like I, as a guy who saw those movies, want to see it on the big screen, of course, and I want to go to the premiere. But I forget what I was going to say. But
here's my question for you, though. Here's my question for you. If they make this movie or TV show, does Kevin call you and say, "Hey, man, I have an executive producer or a producer role for you"?
I mean, I wish. I mean, I hope they call Kevin and say that to him because he doesn't, control any of it. Like the companies who decide to involve him are smart. Like that's why this is doing well. That's why IDW has done so well. He just knows it. It's in his blood. And the more they let him make the way he wants to make it, the better.
It's very funny about you mentioned that, like him doing. I've seen he's done way more Marvel covers now recently too, like variant covers. It's been crazy because obviously you can tell his artwork from a mile away. And when I see it when I do my pull list, I'm like, wait, Kevin Eastman, he's one coming out next week. Elektra Black, White, and Blood, I think it has an Eastman variant on there, which is pretty badass.
He's doing that. He's doing the whole book, him and Freddie. So
it's pretty cool.
You gotta, what's really cool is when he and I started working together, he was like, yeah, Marvel hates me. They'll never use me. And he never got any Marvel. The Conan stuff that happened only a couple of years ago, I think was his first Marvel stuff. And so now they're leaning in because, again, like it's this whole new, the people in charge are us. Like they're like 36-year-old like Turtle fans who are like, oh my God, like I love this. And they're like, we got to get Kevin. And like, so now he's on like the NECA packaging. Yeah. He's finally getting all this respect and more work related to this thing that he created. Because it's like you create it and then they sold it, you know, like it sold it at different times, of course. But then I feel like a lot of the companies are like, we don't need them and we don't want them because they'll try to do it their way. And it wasn't until like the 2012 show, the IDW series, the people that were making it knew what was good about it, knew why, and were blessed by the fact that the creators were still around and could use them and work with them. And like the Ciro Neely, like 2012 Nickelodeon show is just perfect. And it's a love letter to them.
I was just checking to make sure I got a key comic collector alert. I just want to make sure there wasn't a the Last Ronin TV show movie is going to be made. That would be insane.
If it just happened right there.
If it like literally happened on air, like.
Hey, is that a phone case or a sticker?
A sticker.
I need another one of those.
I'll send you some stickers.
Because I've got one on my Xterra, but I've had a Bronco on order for like a year and a half. And so when the Bronco comes in, I got to put it.
Do that, and I'll get you some. I got some sweatshirts, some new sweatshirts into it. You know, it's not sweatshirt weather, but at some point I'll send you a sweatshirt.
Yeah, so shirts hit me with medium.
We got.
Sweatshirts, I'll do larges.
Yeah, we got you. We got some other stuff coming in too.
We gotta do some more stuff.
Oh yeah. The to wrap this up about Turtles, I mean, it was a great series. I mean, you're happy with the whole Last Ronin thing. I think the story was great. I think it's one of those things that's coming out in hardcover right this summer. In July, I think it was somewhere around there, hardcover. We get a variant hardcover.
I can't talk about it. Problem.
So here's a question for you. I mean, you for the past year and a half, you've had to but also benefit from the idea of selling variant covers of these books. That just ended. like back when I pre-ordered and spent my couple $100 on my variants from you, now it's over. I'm hoping you have something lined up, at least maybe you can't talk about, but you have things you need to finish too, right? You need Drawing Blood 2 to finish. You need to finish Aggregate 2. You've obviously launched some other people's. What are these books coming out? Your t-shirt.
Oh yeah. I didn't even know if you could see that.
You can't move it because this freaking thing isn't a moving thing.
Yeah, it's falling. So yeah, a whole bunch of stuff there. So there's so much in the works all the time. What I realized, not even that long ago, obviously, was that there's only going to be 5 issues of Last Ronin. So I've had these big sale days, like you said, where the site has done really well since the pandemic, and I was starting to do all that work. Like I said, things were going really great for me, honestly, as long as I was healthy and everyone around me was, and been able to have Emily in here, my assistant now. We've got a couple interns starting from the art college soon because we're doing so much shipping. So basically I started looking at like what was going really well and like what's working and not trying to create some new idea because I'm constantly like, oh, I should do this. And the club is really working. The Bishart Kids Club that you're a part of and you do videos for, like the boxes are getting better and better. You haven't got the newest one, but I just love it. And the community of the Bishart Kids Club is really great because they're always helping each other out. Like, can you find me a toy? Can you find me this comic? We even have a moral support thread where people are just constantly like helping each other out. And then now that shows are back in session and we're going to conventions, like the meetups have been amazing. And people have told me like, I'll never leave this club. Like it's like I've met like some of my greatest friends here. And then other people have told me like, I gotta be honest with you, I made like $6,000 to join your club because they're just like selling their own stuff, promote my Chiz channels and the buy, sell, and trade. Like, good. And so I've got some ideas in the works that are going to kind of expand on that aspect of it, the community and You know, the Bishards Club is like really, really good for me, obviously. Like I get to show off my stuff all day long. I get to have this direct channel to say, oh, I've got the sale going on, or hey, this is happening next week. But I want to do that for like other artists, and especially other just creators, not just artists, but other creators who may not be willing or wanting or able to go to conventions like what we're talking about at the start of the show, because it's exhausting, because they're not invited, because they don't have a big enough name, because it's expensive, whatever. I think there should be ways that they can, you know, create a career for themselves, because I'm sure that you have really good stories to tell, and you shouldn't stories shouldn't like not exist in our world because you just don't have enough money to draw a page a day. Like, and so I'm being very vague, but I've got some cool ideas that I think will be more like the convention experience a little bit online, but even outside of that, just like people getting stuff made and out there without having to change the way like they live. I don't know if that makes sense, but so I'm working on that stuff. Comic wise, Drawing Blood, Aggregate, and there's a rumor I might be involved in some of the Last Ronin stuff, but that's all I'll say. It is truly a rumor right now. I'm not even holding back. Like, I don't know.
Yes, exactly. But every time, it's one of those things. Every time I talk to a comic creator or author or things like that, there's obviously things you can't say. And I'm never going to be the kind of person who runs a podcast or some sort of media outlet that tries to get it out of people. Oh my God, he slipped. Can you believe that? I don't care.
I would just tell you, cut that.
Yeah, you would. And it's also the thing is, it's like, I also feel like I am in the kind of way that I'm part of a group that you've actually said, you know, small things or leaks corners of pages or things like that to the group, and it's literally stays within the group, and we're good at that. We shouldn't. We have the benefit of that, and the second that slips out, it's no longer going to happen anymore. So why would you do that? So no, yes, I know, like a lot of the guests that are coming to the Bangor Comic and Toy Con and the Maine, but I don't say anything to anybody because I know I'm never going to find out about them anymore or help them anymore if I tell people about it. So no, I understand that. And so
I love to spill it. So God bless you for not pulling it from me. Yeah. I love to spill it.
Ben, I'm just looking out for your well-being, man. I just know, I mean, I know how much I paid for my books.
Well, I'm hoping like it's my goal, like every day, and anything I do or any cover, blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm like, I want to make all these like Bishart Kids Club collections just go up and up and up. Cause that's the other thing is it's like a buy and sell trade thing. And like, people are just like, oh, I didn't have that. I joined the club 2 months ago. It's really awesome. Like to just have that like ecosystem happening and people meeting new friends, and then they meet in person and they're like, holy crap, I feel like I've known you forever. And they just like know each other for online or whatever.
I had to buy a portfolio thing for all the prints that I've gotten from you that I don't have space in my wall, thing to hang up because I'm like, I got only a limited number of space here to put things up, and I want other stuff on the wall too from other people. So I was just like, oh, I got to put something in something. So now they're safe. They used to just be in a Bish box because those are great to store things in because they're the size of a print. So it was just kind of funny.
That's what I was going to say next is it actually going back to your convention questions, like it wasn't until these last 2 shows I started putting my prints in the Bish boxes, and I was like, holy crap, this is perfect.
Yes.
And now I've got my convention like bag packed so simply. It's crazy because I used to have this like one box that I would duct tape, and then TSA would duct tape, and then they'd open it and they duct tape. It's mostly rubber at this point. And I weighed it the other day and it was like 5 extra pounds. And I was like, I'm counting the pounds every bag, every day, every show. I'm not bringing this stupid box anymore. The Bish box is safe, but
but I mean, so you are keeping busy. That's good. I'm glad that your life has not just ended with the Last Ronin, you know.
No, but it's a little scary. Like I think I was leading to that when I said like I've got Emily here. Got a big studio. I know there's no more big sale days for different issues unless I'm involved in some future stuff. But so now I'm trying to make those things that are going really well, like just continue going well, because the dream would be like the club is going great, store is steady, Emily's busy, you know, like so that I'm not. And then I'm just working on the aggregate for as long as it freaking takes. Like that's what I want to be doing. Like I've got this beautiful river here. I want to just be like writing and drawing this book, The Aggregate, which for new people, I've already told you what what it is and what it's about, but truly it came about because it came about way back. Book one I launched in 2016, but the reason I decided to make it was because I've been doing commissions. I found some success with turtle fans. I got some turtle covers. I was doing all that, and I was like making money and doing this, but it wasn't like scratching the itch. And I was still a writer. I still had stories I wanted to tell and like things I wanted to draw for fun. And so the aggregate is literally like, what do you want to draw?
Mm-hmm.
What do you want to write? And everything is on the table because it's a split decision book. And so I go, okay, we've got spider cats, giant robots. We've got like, I'm going to draw like this vehicle. It's like Shredder's like drill thing. It goes under like, and I work it in the story and people have fun with it. It's fun to draw. It's fun to read. Like there's nothing better. It's like, it's my mental health book. And so if I can get all that stuff just level, even without the Last Ronin sales, and just work on that book for as long as it takes, get it out, and then figure out what's next, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, exactly. But I got an idea for you for your next thing is, how they do sketch, they have the sketch covers, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, the sketch covers. What about you put a book together, draw it all out, lay it all out, put it all in there, do all the artwork, and then put bubbles that are empty, and people have to write their own comic book out of what you've given them for artwork.
The whole inside.
The whole inside. This whole thing is just basically you put the speech bubbles where they're supposed to go, and they have people doing things. And what I was telling Paul about this at Galactic Comics was like, what you could do with this book is like someone could do a horror book, and then like they could do a scary movie version of Scream. You know what I mean? Like they could make it a comedy version of the same exact book. I think that would be pretty funny.
So I would piggyback on that idea, and I would print it on dry erase paper so that you can reuse it.
Yeah. I'm like, this is a horrible idea, but I'm like, this is like fun. I mean, kind of fun to do that. Like, or just take a book you already have, like take aggregate and do a reprint version on dry erase paper and have people write the entire book themselves.
Yeah. Oh, I like all these wild ideas. The split decision thing was meant to like push the format. When I first kickstarted, I said people have been reading comics the same way for 65 years. And I was like, why not like have a split and go, I'll do it this way. And then that takes me here. And then that takes me here. And then I die, so I'll go back, and then I do it this way. And this way. Like, why not read the same book different ways? And so that has now taken me to how else can I mix it up? So speaking to, you asked about my shirt. Yeah. So this is a book called The Sordid Land that Jim Lawson is writing and drawing for Split Decision Comics. Jim Lawson's one of the classic OG Turtle guys over at Mirage Studios with Kevin and Pete. And he's got this whole story of his own. And that story, aggregate has like a bunch of choices, like everywhere. Mm-hmm. Sordid Land is going to be like one big split. And the gutters are black or the gutters are white. And then within those big splits, there's some little choices. We've got another book called Nebula Novum, which is like more of like a Blade Runner meets Adventure Time or something as far as like the style and tone. But it's a mystery. It's like a beat cop kind of thing. He's trying to solve these mysteries, which is perfect for split decisions. But that one, we're pushing the whole format in a different way. Whereas a lot of times, as I was doing aggregate, reaching out to shops, they would say, no, we don't want it because it's a graphic novel. We only carry floppies or issues. Like, can you do it in issues? And I say, well, if it was a 20-page comic, there's not going to be that much variety and choices. So things tend to get bigger. But we figured out a way on this Nebula Novum book by Michael Goodwin. He's writing it and drawing it. For it to be issue 1 is 1 book, issue 2 is 2 books, issue 3 is 3 books, issue 4 is 4 books. So you can literally put them on the ground and see like a tree the same way you would when you were outlining the story on a piece of paper. And he can go, okay, from book 2B, I want to go to 3C and then to 4B and you'll have a different thread each time. And so that one's going to be really fun. As the years go by, probably be a decade before we get through all issue 5s or something. But
yes,
but pushing just the way and the fun around reading it, like why not? Like, and why does a story need the structure that a story always has? Why do we need to be able to predict? It's going to end, and I bet it ends exactly the opposite of where it started. He was a bad guy, now he's going to learn something. Like, why does that need to happen? And so I've got some other stories cooking that are playing with that kind of thing, like the internal structure of a story, not just the physical outside structure. I don't know. It's fun. And
you take it where you want to go because you own it, or have people that work close together with you. So it's not like you have a sub person above you telling you what you can and cannot do, and that's the benefit of creator-owned stuff.
Yeah. At the end of the day, you're flexing your drawing muscles, you're flexing your writing muscles, putting out more work so that when you're 80, you look back and you're like, oh man, I told some cool stories. I've got a decent legacy. I did some weird stuff. And then, it wasn't until after I did Split Decision Comics and pitched Netflix Split Decision TV that Black Mirror show came out. And I was like, it's the collective consciousness. I don't claim credit for doing it. I ripped off Choose Your Own Adventure a long time ago and decided to do it with comics instead. And I get it, but I'm happy to see it happening. And I want it to happen in more areas.
I did a can art once a couple of years ago for OBC that was called Side Country, and it was like the side slope of a mountain skiing or whatever. And literally, we sent the label art into the printer, and that night, Rising Tide Brewing Company in Portland posted a picture of their can that was releasing that weekend, and it was so identical. The colors, the idea, I think it was called Backcountry was the name of the bit. Neither one of us had talked to each other in months. And it just happened to be that someone had the same linear mind frame as I had going into it, or we had going into it. And it was the funniest thing, because if we would have seen it, I would have said, nope, scrapping that idea. I'm going to redo it because I don't want to have the same can on the market. It was the weirdest thing to see that happen.
We're both inspired by probably similar things at the same time, and you got there at the same time. I had this story with some other guys I was working with once. We had this company called Out for Justice, which was a Steven Seagal reference. And our logo is just a stick of dynamite. And we had this story called Palindrome, and it was spelled ROAM at the end, because the kid had this device that he could use to create like a shield or a sword, and this, that, and the other thing, which inevitably, like, I kind of took for aggregate a little bit. As far as like forming the metal structures and things. But the bad guy in the series was this guy called Cordyceps tetanus. And his whole idea was he wore like this gas mask, and he was in a living state of disease. And like, if he touched you or he was too close to you, or he took his gas mask off, you would get what he had, which was something called cordyceps, which I'm sure you've heard of.
Yeah.
And I first saw it on Planet Earth with David Attenborough and the ants who have the cordyceps fungus coming out of their heads. And this ant is like triggered to like go as high as possible, so that when it dies, like, the fungus comes out and it can infect the most other ants. And then they're like, oh, and there's like 1,000 different species of this fungus for different species of animals. And I go, okay, that's zombies. It's only a matter of time before it happens to humans. And guess what? Naughty Dog had the same exact idea at the same exact fucking time. And they made The Last of Us, which is awesome. And they made it before I made my shit. And I'm like, okay, like, collective conscious. They even said they were inspired by that exact same episode of Planet Earth.
Yes. And you can't do anything about it. Now you can't make it, because now it looks like you copied The Last of Us. Not even like the same thing. So it's just 20%. Funny how that works. Yeah, exactly.
Change it 20% and you're good.
You're good. You're golden. Yeah, right. Exactly. But yeah, so I have anything else you want to say? Because I got nothing else, man. I don't know what else to talk about.
Yeah, we didn't really talk about Ronin that much. We talked about Ronin, but I mean, you read the book. You liked it.
I read the book. It was unbelievable. Everybody should read it. That's why I should tell people, like, you should talk the Ronin. Like, I kind of like spoiling it for people, stuff like that. Like we did spoil a little bit out of it, but like, the idea is that you really should read it yourself. I've always done this when we do movie reviews too. I'm always like, well, maybe you should watch the movie. I'm like, well, if you've gotten this far into it, the movie's spoiled for you, but like, you should still watch the movie because it's great. Yeah.
Watch it. At least you'll have a good preconceived notion going in, because we like it. Yes. So there's that.
The first issue of Ronin reminded me a lot of what Escape from New York. Like, it had that Escape from New York vibe of Manhattan, and the idea that it's walled off city. And obviously it's not a prison, but like, it had this like Escape from New York thing. And then it made me go, they should reboot Escape from New York. Like, I was thinking to myself, like, I want that movie made again, but like modern.
I heard they were thinking about that a while ago, and I just was not on board unless it was still Kurt Russell.
Oh, Kurt Russell should be in it, but just like, I don't know. Kurt Russell in that movie was just funny to see him in that movie. Actually, you can't see it, I don't think, on here. Put up on the top thing. I have a VHS tape of Escape from New York. I got signed by the guy who did stunts in Escape from New York. But yeah,
well, I think is really cool about it. The same way that in issue 5, the Shredder armor, everyone's like, oh, it's like T1000, T1000. Yeah. It's like an 80s reference. So like issue 1's an 80s reference, and or 90s. I think it's 80s. 80s, yeah. But 80s. But like that's the shit that was going on when Kevin and Pete were like throwing shit at the wall and coming up with crazy ass ideas. Shredder's got this liquid metal suit. It's fucking crazy. Do anything. like I bet it was awesome time to like come up with cool ideas. And then the fact that Tom and Kevin like kept certain ones speaks to like the time, and I think that speaks to why it would still fit as a direct sequel to the original movies. It's all there. It's just we're just in the beginning. We're in the comic book part, and then hopefully it's a movie, and then hopefully it's this, that, and the other thing.
Well, it's the sad part. Another sad part about it is I mentioned someone posted something. Donnie Cates posted a picture of himself in this outfit that he was wearing, some sort of like he was getting dressed up to go do something or whatever. And the internet obviously blew up at him that like Stanley and Ditka, all these people would roll over their graves and they saw that you were wearing this as a comic book creator. And he retorted back, obviously back saying,
like, that's so wrong.
It was not. It was. He looked like he belongs in like a like a punk band. Like it's who Johnny Cates is, but like still, like Stan Lee was like wearing fun, cooler things at the time. Like he wasn't like the suit and tie and all that stuff too. So it was so funny to see that. But he says the whole point of this statement was that he was like. Someone goes, oh, this is why comics is dying. That's what it was. They go, look at you. This is why comics are dying. And the comic industry is dying. And all these people came back at him and said, hey, man, comics industry is not dying, actually. It is actually better today than it was yesterday, than the year before that, and the year before that. It's literally in a trajectory up. 2021 was the best year in comics in years, and it's not going anywhere. So it makes it sad to me that people probably won't catch the outer peripheral part of people won't catch on to The Last Ronin until it is a TV show or a movie. That's how they get into it.
After that, I think they will.
Yes.
A lot of them. Yeah. And the fact that it was that first means so much anyway. Like, even if you never found out, like, it was what it was intended to be the first time. And it was always intended to be a comic. It was intended to be a story that Pete and Kevin started. You know, and every character in that, like, there's so much, like, every character in it is a Mirage character. You don't have these other characters because it feels like a story that was written then, and they just stuck to it.
Yep.
And for the most part, they kind of did. Tom put Tom all over it. Like, he's very, very, very good writer, and you recognize it when you read IW stuff, and then you read Last Ronin as well. Oh, I can hear Tom in that. But like the skeleton of it all is a story that was created before Turtles was even big. So that's what's so amazing to it to me is like this was written only like 3 years into them making comics. Like it was before everything really exploded. And the only reason, imagine they made it 2 years after that. No one would have gave a shit. No one would have cared. The only reason this meets the hype and rises to the emotion is because we've all lived with it for 30 years. And we all know those characters in different fashions for 30 years. And we know Kevin and Pete are still around and they're still involved. And so like when we see them die in the book, or we see a finality to Mikey's story and the whole Amato clan, Morocco battle, like it's pretty amazing, like because it has all that baggage that we bring to it. They didn't even have to, and a lot of the reviews say that. They say whether you've never read a turtle book before or you only know their names, like you can jump into this book. So it's a great starting off point, it's a great ending. It just worked out, and I don't know really how. Like Kevin's done a lot of stuff for a long time, and like it's all really good, and Drawing Blood is really good, and like he just had this in his back pocket with Pete, and it's because there's a certain little like piece of magic that came with it from the fact that they did create it way back then. even if it's just a certain percentage of what the final product is, something is going on where it's just as magical as their original idea.
Yes, exactly. And there's something said about holding on to something for that long to be able to do something with it too. I mean, obviously, there's nothing like it was like this is the perfect year to do it in. It wasn't like, oh, okay, we got to do it in 2020. This is where we got to do it. It just happened to be the right time for a lot of us. And honestly, it happened to be the right time again. Like you mentioned, the pandemic wasn't a great thing. It isn't a great thing, but like it also gave me the ability to be like, I read more comics in 2020 into 2022 than I've read in years. It gave me the opportunity to reread the Last Ronin every single issue to get to the next issue and so on. You know, in any normal situation, normal year where I'm not working from home or not doing anything with friends, I don't know if I would have had this time to do all the 45 pages of each issue that it is over and over and over and over again. But you know,
that was a silver lining.
Is it technically more issues too because it's bigger? I mean, do you actually get more spaces? It's technically, it says 45 pages, but is it actually like, if you measured it out, would it be like 46, 47 pages?
I don't know. I think it's over. I think the whole thing in whole is about 200 pages, which is
fine. Which is funny to think about. You think about it, it'd be way longer. You'd think that they would be longer because I mean, I feel like there's trade paperbacks that are 250 pages.
I'm always astonished by comics that can get shit done in the shortest amount of time. I'm like, how did you do that? Because like aggregate book 1 is 160 comic book pages. Yeah. It's like 200 pages with all the back material. Yeah. And I'm like, they just started walking. I'm like, how do you do that? Because I love stretching stuff out and like showing the emotions and stuff. But like I was able to do that in this, but written by people who really knew what they were doing.
Yeah, doing. Yeah.
It's cool.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I got winded here at this podcast episode. I'm getting old. It's 30. I turned 36 on Sunday, and I think I'm getting to the point where now I can only do this. Was that?
I knew it. I've been saying 36 this whole time.
Yeah, 36, man. Are you 36?
Oh, I'm 36.
Yeah, I thought I was. I
thought I was 35 for a whole year, but I was. Oh wait, I was 35 for a whole year. I thought I was 34 for a whole extra year.
Well, Asa, our head brewer, did the same thing. He's like, wait, what? How old am I? Because he's 6 months older than me. So he was born in December of 85. I was born in May of 86. And so like for the entire last year, he thought he already was 36. And so like when his birthday came and his girlfriend was like, no, you're turning 36. He's like, oh, I don't know what the hell's going on.
Well, lucky him, he bought a year. Like I was behind a year. I lost the year because I swore I was turning 35. And I think what happened was I just really liked 35. Like, yeah. I was like, oh, that was a good time. I keep trying to remember like my greatest years, and this sounds so sappy, but every year I feel like it's better. So,
dude, you're drawing your childhood. Like that's like, come on, man. Like you get to figure your own stuff. But like,
I was like 18. I was like, this is the best year. And then the next year I was like, well, that was pretty cool. I did a lot of stuff that year, but
yeah,
I don't know.
But yeah, so you can get Drawing Blood soon, right? And then you can get Aggregate soon. Well,
this is a promise that's not a real promise, but I'm hoping Drawing Blood 2 will be out like around the next Granite Con in Manchester, New Hampshire, which is around September. It's the end of September, because Kevin and I will be there, and I'm pretty sure David Atwood is going to be there as well. So I'm racing to make sure it's done by then. So it's a loose promise because I'm not in control, but I want it to be done by then.
And then the Aggregate 2 will get done when it gets done, people.
It'll get done when it gets done, but everybody knows I'm not going anywhere, and I just need it to be like really what I want it to be. I don't want it. I couldn't bounce between that and 3 other projects. I can't even look at the scripts if that's not the only thing on my head. Like, but I'm really, really close to being just on that, which is exciting. Because I mean, it's not like I haven't been touching it, but I haven't given my all, which I need to. So,
you have, and I'll tell you right now, I'll make your head get big. You have my favorite lines, like drawing lines in any book of anybody's I've ever seen. Every time I see when you do your lines, it's amazing. Your line work is amazing. So keep it up.
I like it.
Keep the work going. I like your writing too, but your lines are great. Your line work's great.
It's all about the lines. I do fret over them, so I'm glad that you've noticed.
Well, it's one of those things we talked quickly as someone mentioned too about colors versus, who was it talking to? Someone was talking about how they decided to color their own stuff on a book recently, and they're like, I decided to color them. 8 Billion Genies is it's Charles Soule and Ryan Brown. And Ryan Brown on 8 Billion Genies decided to color his own thing because he realized that people see comic book artwork differently. They see it as I see. So a lot of times I look at the lines, and a lot of other people look at the colors. And if it's someone else's colors, they're coloring. You're seeing technically someone else's artwork in a sense. So you're thinking you're seeing Ryan Brown, but you're really seeing whoever did the colors on it. And so he decided this issue, or this 8 Billion Genies thing that came out, is 8 issues. He's like, I could do 8 issues. I'll draw them, color them, do everything myself, and which is cool. But I was like, you're that's what I look at. And I'm a big Scotty Young fan, and he has different kinds of lines, and I like, obviously, but I could read your stuff and look at your stuff all in black and white, and I'd be happy. Not that your colors are bad, but I'm just saying, like, your lines are great.
I really like black and white as well. And I've just been trying to get tighter and cleaner for many years. I've got like a process that I don't think I've seen anyone else do, honestly. Like, I don't ink, I just use mechanical pencil for my final, and a lot of people don't even realize, because it's done in a way that my favorite inkers do it. Like my favorite inker, Mark Morales, who inks all my favorite artists. And one day I was like, maybe I just love Mark Morales. Like,
yes.
And so I kind of ink or do my finals in that same way. And why I don't do it in ink, I like the way the pencil feels. I use ink on my commissions, and it's an excuse for me to experiment, try some fun stuff with like brushes and watercolors and things like that. But on my pages, like, I've been working on honing this particular style since Nathan the Caveman. So since 2004, I've been working as pencils as finals. And that's because I emailed Linnell Francis Yu, who one day wound up getting inked by Mark Morales exclusively. But when his first stuff, New Avengers, was coming out, it was straight pencils right in marble. And I was like, this is so cool. I could see every direction, even if it wasn't the direction you would hope, like that the lines are going. It's everywhere. You can see the work. And I asked him, how do you do that? He said, Photoshop, image, adjustments, levels, bring the white slider this way, black slider that way, and you're done. And the key is just making sure your art is as clean as possible. Yeah. So like I said, I take great care to keep it clean. So I'm glad you said so. But that's why the roughs are so tight. It's like I work on that rough so that I don't have to do a lot of thinking by the time I get to that final. Like this is the rough of that last page in Ronin. 5.
Wow.
And you could print that.
Yep.
And it'd probably be done. But I redrew the whole thing again on the final.
That Casey is awesome there. It's crouching up there.
I love that fact that I got to draw a classic Case.
It's awesome. It's so amazing. But I gotta get going, and we gotta wrap this thing up. But yeah, so at Bishart on Twitter, Instagram, bishart.net. Join the kids club.
Yeah, think about the club. Look into it if you have no idea what I'm talking about. BishartKidsClub.com. It's a monthly club with quarterly boxes, but there's so many awesome people in there, and like real friendships being made, a community. And then outside of that, if you're not interested in any of that, and you've got enough community, you've got enough friggin' apps, you get 10% off everything, but early access to sale days. So the Bish Kids like cleaned house on every Ronin sale. Shit would sell out in the first like 2 hours sometimes.
Yep.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. And I'm a club member, and I like it. I appreciate all the people in there. As we were recording, actually, someone wrote something in there on the Discord. So it's kind of cool to get alerted on that. And then I haven't been able, because of cons and all that stuff and stuff like that, but at Granite Con, hopefully I'll be able to meet up with some people too, because I know a lot of people down there.
Yeah, you gotta meet. You're gonna be at Granite Con. Yeah.
Yep. So
yeah, we'll absolutely do a dinner. We're doing an auction, charity auction type thing with Kevin's people. It'll be a good time. Granite Con.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's been great. I think it's awesome. It's been Bishop. Maine's own.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, we're only a couple hours away from each other right now.
Exactly. I'm gonna throw a beer at you. There you go. Got it? That would be, oh my God. I wish I had something to throw, but yeah, no. But until next time, that's been Bishop.
Thanks, bro. All right, I'll see you.